Welcome to the Pistons Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. Well, Piston fans, we're going to get into a cool topic, I think, today. We're going to talk about which NBA team or do the Pistons have the best young core four of all the young teams in the NBA. And so we're going to look at the Rockets and the Magic in Oklahoma City, and we're going to compare and contrast those teams to our Detroit Pistons. And anyway, obviously I might be a little bit biased, but I am excited to look at this because there's a lot of different angles to discuss it from. There's a lot of young talent. All these teams are good. All these teams have lots of young talent. It would be exciting to be a fan of any of these teams, I think, of these four teams. But first, let's look at the Rockets. Okay, so they're kind of our rival. I mean, there's not a lot of people that are in love with the Rockets. I will be excited when I think it'll be a fun game. There's the two games out of the year. I think two of the coolest games are going to be when the Pistons play the Rockets because supposedly there's this rivalry, but especially since the Twins are going to be playing each other and also, to play against have the two young teams playing against each other. It has been just announced that the first preseason game for the Pistons is going to be against the Suns, and the NBA likes to do this. They like to see if there's a little bit of rivalry or a little bit of hostility or something between two teams, and they will put them against each other and try to feature those games, even though obviously the Pistons and the Rockets were two of the worst teams last year. But I think there would be some interest in it. But I think the Pistons playing the Suns, why do they do that? Monty was their coach just last year, so that'll be interesting. And again, we discussed earlier how the Pistons are going to play Oklahoma City twice, and we're going to get to see our young core four play against Oklahoma Cities. And one of those games is in Canada. So anyway, the Rockets, they're, I think, led by Jalen Green. And, there's a lot of controversy about some things that he said, but he's 6'4", 178 pounds. He's just played his second year. He's only 21 years old. And in 2021, he was the second player overall drafted, just behind Arcade Cunningham. So in 2021, he averaged 17 points, 2.6 assists, 3.4 rebounds, shot 42% overall, and 34% on threes, 79% from the line. And this past year, he averaged 22 points a game, 3.7 assists, and he shot 41%. So he actually shot a point lower from the field, and then he also shot 33% on threes. And he took, obviously he took more shots. So he averaged 21 his second year and 17 his first year, but his shooting percentages were 1% lower in every category, including, ironically, free throws. He was 79% his rookie year and 78% this last year, So he's a good shooter, and the thing that I can say about him, it just depends on if he's your leader of your team. He has not showed that he shares the ball. He takes bad forced shots, in my opinion. I watched them play. I watched them because I wanted them to win so bad last year, and they had big leads in quite a few games, and they just took terrible shots at bad times, and Jalen Green is one of them. He is one of the most talented players in the NBA. He is gifted. He's a freak athlete. He has a good shot. I think his percentages are bad, but I think he's a good shooter. But I think that he is not known for his defense, and he is not known for passing and sharing the ball. And I think what that does also, that's part of the Rockets culture, and we're going to get into that. And I just don't think the positive leader. He is maybe their most talented player. But next player, we're going to talk about Jabari Smith that plays for them. And he averaged 12.8 points a game last year, and he had 7.2 rebounds, which is pretty high. He had 1.3 assists, 41% overall from the floor, 31% on threes, and he shot 79% from the line. Well, he was supposed to be an elite shooter. That was his calling card. And when he got drafted, he was great at switching out on defense, so he does have some defensive Ackerman that he's can be a good player. He's 6'10". He was the third player picked in 2022, and they thought that he was going to be the first pick. Everybody believed that, and then Banchero got picked ahead of him. But anyway, those Piston fans who watched the Summer League game where our Pistons played against Rockets got to see what he could really do, and he was on fire. He just lit us up. He took tough shot after tough shot, and he made an incredible percentage. I think he scored over 40 points. So I think he's going to have a breakout year. I think he's going to have a great year this year, and I think he was a disappointment last year. There's no other word that you can really describe it. He was disappointing. His shot. He's supposed to be a great shooter, and he shot poorly. He suffered though from being on a team that didn't have guys that wanted to pass the ball. Their guys, including Jalen Green, they just come down and chucked it. He is reliant a lot on people getting him the ball, for spot up threes. He did show this summer a whole bunch of other shots in his bag, man. He had these mid-range post-ups where he could turn around, fade away, and at 6'10", he holds his arms high. But like I said, he's a good rebounder, and he's a great shooter. He was a great shooter in college, one of the best shooters. And coming out that year, I would have loved to have a guy like that. I think would have been a good fit for our Detroit Pistons, because we need a guy that can shoot and play defense, and we got these guys that can drive the ball to the basket. But anyway, he's not on our team. He is a really good player. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits. They also this year drafted with their 5th pick, Amen Thompson, Asur's brother. He's 6'7", first-round pick, 4th player picked overall this year. And according to all reports, it's just been consistently reported that his shot is a lot worse than Asur's. And the bigger thing is how much playing time is he going to get? I think that they're going to struggle to find playing time with him, because they just signed Fred VanVleet, a point guard, to a max contract, and so and they're going to want him to be their leader of their team and have the ball in his hands. So I think it's going to be tough for Amen, but I still believe in his gifts. If I just watched him play a little bit. He only played in one game in the Summer League, but he is supposed to be a better athlete than Asur, and Asur is just a crazy, freaky athlete. So it will be fun to watch him play. He's supposed to be a great passer. I still say this. I'm going to say it again right now, but it surprises me how he's supposed to be this better passer. But Amin played the point, had the ball in his hand constantly for overtime elite, and he averaged 6.2 assists. And Asur, on the other hand, did not have the ball in his hands all the time. He averaged 6.1 assists. Another thing, just to compare and contrast the two, there's something to this. Why the 2 years that he played for overtime elite, the MVP of the league, both years was our Asur Thompson. So, that says something. It's not nothing. It's not everything, but it's not nothing. So, we'll be interested. I think Amin's going to be a great player in the NBA. It's going to be fascinating to see how all these players fit together for them, though. So, and like I said, he's really a point guard. That's what he's played his whole life, and it's just going to be tough with. Green's going to have the ball in his hands all the time, and VanVleet's going to have the ball in his hands all the time. And they also have Kevin Porter Jr., who had the ball in his hands all the time last year, who's a selfish player. So it's just going to be interesting, and that's a little bit what handicaps Jabari Smith. They do have a new coach, and he's known as being a disciplinarian and being very demanding, expecting his players to play a certain way, which I think is going to really translate to their defense being better. So Alperen Şengün is a center that they drafted with the 16th pick in 2021, and he's 6'9". He is not the most mobile player, but he is a fantastic passer, and obviously nothing like the Joker, but he still is an excellent passer. But he's only 6'9", and he's not a great athlete. So he's not freaky fast. He did average 14.8 points last year, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, which is great for a center, especially when you consider how much time the ball is in his hand. He shot 55%. He's got all these moves. He can, pivot one way, fade back the other way, and it reminds me a little bit of Olajuwon, some of his moves. And he does the up and under, but he only shot 33% on threes and 71% from the line. So the questions about him is, how are they going to use him? He can't shoot the three, he can't spread the court on a team that needs that, but also that he's undersized, and maybe his best way of using him is to put the ball in his hands and let him be a playmaker, but he's not going to get that chance with the Rockets. So that'll be fascinating. So Rockets got another player that they picked with the number 7 pick in 2022, and that's Tari Eason. And he was a surprise. He plays his butt off. He's aggressive. He's 6'8". He rebounds the crap out of the ball. He's all over the court. He scored 9.3 points last year, his rookie year, 6 rebounds, only 1 assist. Only shot 44% from the floor and 34% on threes, 75% from the line. So he's not a great shooter, but he is, he's a hustler. He's a good defender. And so they didn't have too many good defenders on that team. So he is, I think, going to be an asset to them. So so that's their 4. It's hard to, try to figure out who the core 4 is. And that's what we're trying to do today, is just compare the top 4 young players on each team. So Tari Eason could be one of them, or I guess in this case, you can decide whether it's going to be Cam Whitmore. So Cam Whitmore was my choice for the Pistons to take with number 5 pick, and he's 6'7". They're loaded with guys 6'7", 6'8". That their teams, they got a lot of them, so I don't know how they're going to play them all. But Cam Whitmore was MVP of the Summer League. He's got potential to be a great scorer. He can shoot the three. He's got lots of moves. He's a freak athlete. He's strong. He's got a high vertical. And my challenge for him is, where is he going to play? So they just signed Dylan Brooks, who I don't like. Dylan Brooks is a good player. He plays hard on defense, but I think his personality is not positive for a team. It's nice to have an edge, but if you're a jerk, and that translates. And then the other thing about him is his percentages are really good not bad. He's not a bad shooter when he takes good shots, but he can't help himself. He takes bad shots all the time. So his percentages weren't good. On his open threes, his shot percentage was great. But then he took so many shot threes that weren't open, so his percentage was bad. So anyway, he's 6'7", and he'll play the same spot that Cam Whitmore plays. And Amen Thompson's 6'7", and so they just are loaded with those guys. Jabari Smith plays forward, so Tari Eason. So where are the minutes going to come? So that's going to be a challenge for Amin Udoka, who is going to play. What is their culture going to be like? Fred VanVleet is a real good leader, real positive person. Is he going to be able to carry the team and help set the culture for this team? I don't know if Kevin Porter Jr. is not going to be happy. I just can see a lot of players not being happy. Not only they're not going to get enough minutes, they're not going to get enough shots. I mean, they even traded Kenyon Martin Jr., who's another 6'7" guy. He's a great athlete, freak athlete. His dad was a great player. But they traded him to the Clippers for a second-round draft pick, I think. So we're seeing that a lot with these second-round draft picks. I mean, not on our topic, but it's just, Obi Toppin got traded for a second-round pick, and there's some other guys, I can't remember exactly who they were. Teams just unloaded them because they just want to get rid of them for a second-round pick, and the player can arguably be worth more than the second-round pick. So anyway, the Rockets have as much or more young talent than any team, for sure. If you just looked at pure talent and basketball ability, I mean, Jalen Green, again, he's a freak. Jabari Smith's a freak. Amen Thompson is great. Şengün has a lot of talent. Tari Eason plays hard. But we're going to see that, they have a lot of overlap in size and position. And a lot of their team's not as selfish. They got a lot of guys who think me first instead of team first. And so that matters, and it matters in the NBA. And like I said, I watched a lot of their games last year, and they'd come down and jack up a terrible shot at an important time in the game when they could have got a better shot. So, all right, let's dig into the Orlando Magic. They had last year's Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero. He's 20 years old only, and he's 6'10", and he's a moose. He's 250 pounds. He was the number 1 player picked last year. in 2022, he averaged 20 points, 7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 42% from the floor. So he shot 42% only, and he's this big, strong guy that's supposed to be so skilled and talented, and he shot 42%. There's a difference if you're a guard that shoots 42% versus a big that shoots 42%. He shot 29% on threes. So he's not proven that he can shoot. And, I talk about this all the time on my podcast. A lot of things, stats are inflated. It's just how many shots do you get? How many minutes do you get? Those determine how many points you score. You can score 20 points and not be that good. I mean, it sounds insane. We just automatically assume a guy that scores 20 points. He can improve. He can improve, but he's not a great defender. He's not a great passer. He's not a great shooter. And he was unanimously pretty much Rookie of the Year. But I'm surprised. I think some of these other guys in that class are going to end up being better players. That's my take on it. But I wouldn't mind having him on my team. But I just think he has a lot of areas that he's deficient in. Franz Wagner, University of Michigan, former player. He's only 22 years old, 6'9", number 8th pick in 2021. He was a steal. He's been phenomenal. This past year, he scored 18.6 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shot 48% from the floor, and 36% on threes and 84% from the line. So those are good, really good shooting numbers. Good assist totals for the number of times he touched the ball. He has so much ability, and he's a good defender. So I think he's by far the best young player. So Anthony Black is 19. They drafted him this year. He was the number 6 player pick. He, by all accounts, is a brilliant basketball player, unselfish, hardworking, real good defender. He's a real good athlete, not a freak athlete, but he is plays the right way and tries real hard. But he can't shoot. And the Magic are full of players that can't shoot, so that was question why they took him. But he is a tall point guard, 6'7", and he's strong, and he likes to defend. So again, it's not the five most talented guys that win. It's the best team that wins, and I see that at all levels, all the time in basketball. So it's real hard to pick their top 4 players. So that's the next player I chose for them was Jalen Suggs, who's only 21, 6'4". He was the number 5 player picked in 2021. I liked him a lot coming out of Gonzaga. He made that half-court shot to win a game in the NCAA tournament. But I wondered why he never shot threes in college. He shot it very, very, and I thought, well, he's just unselfish. I thought, well, he's just playing on this team. Gonzaga was loaded. But I guess, he's not a good shooter. He scored 10 points a game. He only played 23 minutes a game, and he had some injuries and stuff, but he had 3 rebounds, 3 assists. So again, minutes matter. Banchero played tons of minutes, way more than what Suggs played, but Suggs still only shot 41%, only 32% on threes and 72%. And so there again, he's on this team that they don't shoot good, and they don't have many shooters. And so I guess people could argue that way about the Pistons, but I just don't see. I see Banchero has, obviously he could end up being all NBA. I'm not sure. I am sure he'll make some all-star teams at some time, but I think that he'll be one of those players that shoot a lot and score a lot, and if you don't pass and you don't play defense, you're not a winning player. So I love Wendell Carter. They got lucky. So just like the Rockets got to trade Harden, and they got a lot of picks, and so they were real lucky with that. And the Magic got to trade Valanciunas and Aaron Gordon, and they got first-round picks and players, and so they got real lucky too. But they got Wendell Carter too, and so he's 6'10". He plays center for him, number 7 player picked in 2018. He's 24 years old, so he's young, but I don't consider him as young as these other guys in the young course. But I don't. He averaged 15 a game, 8.7 rebounds, 2 assists, shot 52% from the floor, and 35% on threes, which isn't terrible, but it isn't great. But they also have a lot of talent. They have Cole Anthony that has real gifted scorer, but he's not a consistent shooter. Markelle Fultz, who was a number 1 pick years ago, and he has started to become a really good player. And I really like the way he plays, and he plays tough on defense. He's an unselfish player, not a great three-point shooter. They got Jet Howard. They drafted him high, I think the 11th pick this past year, and for his three-point shooting. That's why they drafted him. A lot of people question why they didn't take Grady Dick at that pick, but they have Gary Harris and Mo Wagner. They got some Michigan and Michigan State players on their team, so that's always, when we watch them play, it's always interesting to see that. So, and the last team, this is a little bit tricky because a lot of the players that I've been talking about, most of them are like 22 or younger. But the Oklahoma City, I guess everybody always includes Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's 25. So, I just want to use him as an example. We got all these players that are so young on our team. And Shai this past year averaged 31 points a game. Well, when he was 20, he averaged 10.8. When he was 21, he took a big jump to 19. When he was 22, 23 points a game, 23, 24 points a game, and then, like I said, now this last year he averaged 31 points a game. So a lot of these good players that you just have to go look at basketball, look up stats, and you can see where a lot of these really good players had a gradual, or maybe they had especially a lower rookie year, and then they took a jump, and then sometimes they took bigger jumps different years. But anyway, he's first team All NBA. He can score. He doesn't shoot threes. I mean, everybody says to be great, you got to be able to shoot threes, but he got 4.8 rebounds and 5.5 assists, which is really good. I never noticed that he passed that well when he watched him because he was always scoring, but he shot 51%. A lot of those are tough shots at the rim. He's not that. He's 6'6", but he was the 11th pick in 2018, but he shot 34% on threes, which isn't great though. But so they drafted Chet Holmgren and in 2023, but he didn't get to play this past year because he injured his foot in a pickup game. But he's 21 and he's 7 foot tall, and he's very he's quite active for a big guy. I can't say he's a great athlete. He's still very painfully skinny, but he blocks shots really well. He can shoot threes, good for a big guy, and he can handle the ball a little bit for a big guy. But he's a big question mark. So if he gets to his top end, where his ceiling, they're going to be unbelievable. And I think that's going to take some time if he ever does. I still think, regardless, his floor is still high, that he's always going to be able to protect the rim and provide some spacing and playmaking, I think, for a guy 7 foot tall. So it's going to be intriguing to see what happens with him. So Josh Giddey is it's interesting with him. So he was a point guard. He used to throw these amazing passes that I love, like Pistol Pete would throw, and guys, real uncanny passes. LaMelo can pass really great like that. And anyway, Josh Giddey's 21 only. He was the number 6 player picked. He was a surprise pick by Oklahoma City. A lot of people were shocked he got picked that high in 2021. But this past year, 16.6 points, 8 rebounds. So he rebounds. He's big. He's real. 6'8" or whatever guard, and he had 6.2 assists, and that's high, especially when you consider that Shai handles the ball a lot, and that Josh is scoring 16 points a game. So he shot 48% from the floor, 32% on threes, which isn't great, but compared to last year, his rookie year, where he only shot 26% on threes. So he took a huge jump. That's, and they got that shooting coach from the Spurs that's supposed to be one of the best shooting coaches in the league. He's highly regarded by everybody as one of the best shooting coaches in the league. So, again, his rookie year, he averaged 12 points a game. He jumped to 16 this last year, so there's a 4-point jump. He improved on his rebounding, and obviously he improved a lot on his shooting. The player that they have that I really love is Jalen Williams. He's 6'6", and he's out of Santa Clara. They have 2 Jalen Williams, but this one's the one out of Santa Clara that was, had just a terrific rookie year. He's 22 years old, the number 12 pick in 2022, which now in hindsight is a steal. He averaged 14 points as a rookie and 4.5 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 52% from the floor and 35% on threes as a rookie and 85% on free throws. So he is a great all-around player. I would love to have him on my team, and I think he's going to be a big difference maker for them. So they obviously have just a great team, and a question for them is going to be how good can they be on defense? Is Chet going to be able to help them? There's also the big debate. They have a lot of good players. So just like the Rockets have a lot of good young players, they just drafted Cason Wallace. He's 6'4", 19 years old. He's the number 10 pick this past year. But they have Isaiah Joe, Keontae Johnson, Jalen Williams, the one from Arkansas. That's a big guy that plays good. Lou Dort, they signed him to a decent contract. Aaron Wiggins is good. Trey Mann. They just got a lot of Gruba. They have all these good players. I haven't even named all of them, but they can't play them all. They can't even roster them all. We've talked in the past podcast about are the Pistons, they have the number one waiver claim, and are they going to be able to pick up one of those guys? So we'll see about that, what happens. But then let's talk about our Pistons. So again, I know more about the Pistons because I cover them and watch them and read everything I can get my hands on and listen to every podcast I can. And we got Cade Cunningham, and he's 21 years old, 6'6", with a long wingspan. He was the number one player picked in 2021, and he is phenomenal. And he got to show up that a little bit. I mean, it's funny. I warn people about overreacting. And when like the summer league, if a guy's only played 4 games, or this is, Cade played 2 scrimmages or 3 scrimmages, and he showed up at 2, and the scrimmages weren't even as long as the regular game, but he was very impressive. He is impressive. He is a smart player. He is a tough player. He loves to play. He is a leader by every stretch of the imagination. We're going to talk more about that. And last year he averaged 21 points a game, and last year he averaged 19.9 points a game. So what I want to say is he only played 12 games. So when you play that small sample size, the last game he played, he only played hardly any minutes because his shins finally gave out on him. That was his last game last year, and so they only played him limited minutes. He's 1 for 11 from the floor, and so 1 for 11 doesn't impact your average that much if you play 75 games. But when you're playing 12 games, it lowered his scoring average by 2 points. It lowered his shooting percentages by a significant amount. And so, really, if he wouldn't have played that game when he was hurt in games prior to that, but that last game is when he finally threw in the towel and agreed to have the surgery. So the thing I want to say, and above everything else, when you compare these 4 teams, is we've got the guy. And leadership in some instances I think is overrated, but in this instance it's not. Cade is a leader. He sets the culture for the team by his attention to detail, his work ethic, the way that he's constantly talking to players. He's always in their ear. You could tell that all the players, even the veterans, look up to him. But he just sets the tone, and like I said, the culture, and it's who he is. And Steph Curry does a great job of that. Steph Curry, people I think with the Warriors have always acted better than what they, except for Draymond, they always act a certain way, and they always are trying and always giving their best because Steph's around, and they're not going to act like clowns when Steph's around because they respect him. So he's just a great person, and everybody looks to him, and I think that is the difference. None of these other teams, I always look back at Magic Johnson. What a great leader he was. On the court, he was unselfish like Cade. He always was talking to people, encouraging people, pumping people up, and Cade does the same thing. And so he is the big difference maker. None of these teams have a leader like Cade on their team, so I think that is going to really make a difference. So we have Jaden Ivey that had a sensational rookie year last year. I think it was underrated by many people. He improved so much throughout the year, and he had to play on a bad team. He got penalized for that in the all rookie voting and the rookie of the year voting, but he had a great year. He's only 21 years old, 6'4", number 5 pick, 2022, averaged 16.3, 4 rebounds, 5.2 assists, shot 42% from the floor, 34% on threes, which really increased at the end of the year, and he really did a great job of hitting his open threes. Shot 75% on the line, but his improvement and the fact that he is just known for being the hardest worker and puts in the most time of anybody, and then he can show it. Some people, there's guys that can practice shooting all the time and they still can't shoot, but he improved it. He developed his mid-range game. It was crazy how he had no mid-range game, and then partway through the year, all of a sudden he gets it. He wasn't a passer, and even in college he wasn't known as being a good passer, but then all of a sudden he played the point guard after Cade got hurt, and he was amazing at passing at games with 13 assists and 12 assists, and it really was impressive. And I also think just the fact that we have these unselfish guys is going to matter. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. So Duren, 19 years old, youngest player in the NBA. Everybody says that every time they talk about him, but he's 6'10". He's strong. Even the guys on the Olympic team, the Team USA, were blown away at how big and strong he looked for, he's just 19. But he was the 13th player picked, 2022, 7'5" wingspan. All these guys have long wingspans. Cade's wingspan is really long, way longer than it should be. Ivy's got a freaky long wingspan. And so those are big factors, especially on defense. So he's the only one. Duren is the only player choice. He's the only player on the team I can't put a ceiling on. So that's, the sky is the limit. He is so gifted. He can pass. He's shown signs of just making these amazing reads and passes that just take skills and talent that people just can't do. Just the average person can't do. They can look and make a pass, but he has some flair to his passes. He can throw the behind the back pass. He was doing that when he was in junior high. So I'm thrilled about him. The big thing he can do is just pound the offensive boards, and he's unstoppable. He just goes down there and he goes after everyone, and he just overpowers people. And he had scored 9 points a game, 9 rebounds, shot 65% from the floor. Most of them are dunks, but he still did it. His free throws only 61%, but it drastically improved throughout the year. But he did all these stats on 24 minutes, and so let's see what's going to happen. 6 minutes more, you can just tack on. 6 or 8 minutes more. You can tack on a lot of stats in that much time. Our next guy is, real interesting, is Asur, and he was obviously this year's first round pick for the Pistons, number 5. He's 20 years old, 6'7", and all these guys. My brother accuses me of saying that I love him now because he's on our team. Well, I do love every player that's on our team, and I'm going to cheer for every player and look for the best in every player on our team. But I can tell you, I was never for Killian Hayes, not from day one. I wanted Therese Halliburton before the draft, during the draft, and after the draft. And I always knew that, I repeatedly said it. And Killian's still there. He could get traded to another team, and, he showed some signs last year. But I don't just pick like players, Luke Kennard. I wanted Mitchell, and the day of the draft, not in hindsight, before the draft pick was made, I said, get Mitchell, and they drafted Luke Kennard. And so Kennard's one of the best shooters in the NBA, but he's obviously not the player Mitchell is. So anyway, my point is I like Asar. I wanted Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore still can end up being a fabulous player. I still question, again, when I went through the Rockets, where's the playing time going to come from for him, and the shots going to come from? It's going to be really hard for him, I think. But I think that Asur is just too gifted at too many things, and it's not just that he's good at them. You can have a guy that's good at defense and can pass some, and but they can't do the things that a Sur can do at the level that he can do. There's guys that are great athletes. Again, I use Hamadou as an example, and nobody still, to my knowledge, has signed him. But Hamadou is a freak of nature, great athlete. He can finish at the basket really well. He had a great year last year for us, but he's not a good defensive player. He can't pass and he can't shoot. So those, even though he's a freak athlete, that just shows you. But Asur, on the other hand, is an amazing passer. He's a genius on defense, and he's got a motor that doesn't stop. He's all over the court, and I just have a feeling that Monty is not going to be able to keep him off the floor. So we'll see what happens, but I love his unselfishness, and that's the thing about all of our guys. Our core four, they are all unselfish. They're going to play together. They're going to be fun to watch because they share the ball, which is different than any of these other four teams. Again, Josh Giddey's a great passer, but all the guys on the Oklahoma City aren't great passers, and so these other teams don't have the size and the strength, I think, that our Pistons do. So I think that it's going to be interesting to watch these teams as we go forward. The Pistons are a little bit younger, and the Pistons started from a little bit disadvantaged to a lot of teams because, like I said, Oklahoma City had Paul George that they got to get Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and then they got to trade away a bunch of guys and got a whole lot of picks. And their general manager is a master at getting lots of picks. And in the Rockets, again, they got to trade James Harden, so they got a lot of extra picks, plus finishing low every year. Orlando, they had a huge advantage with their two big trades where they got lots of picks. But I'm excited for our Pistons. They are, going to be really great together. But it's going to take time because their players are all super young, and they all need a couple years to improve. But it's going to be fascinating. We need to revisit this in 3 years, and just to see what happens. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. And I, would like to dig more into this, but I think that a lot of you, I'm sure, have opinions on which team you would pick if you were I'm sure you're thinking I'm a homer. But anyway, thank you for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe and leave a thumbs up and put it on your notifications. And I want you to all be the reason that someone feels welcome, seen, heard, valued, loved, and supported, and make their day better. And go Pistons.